So, what exactly is the difference between being really, really tired and something like ME chronic fatigue? Before I get to answering that question, I want to make you aware of a process, a thing that God designed right into our body so that we have the ability to create energy for ourselves. In order to explain that to you, I want to start with a question. What is the fuel for your body? Now, of course, you're going to say food, but it's not the answer. It turns out our body operates on something that's extracted from our food or refined from our food. It's a bit like the relationship between your car and the raw materials that make gasoline, called crude oil. If you stick crude oil into the tank, directly into the tank of your car, what's going to happen? Well, you'll probably get it started up because there's a little gasoline in the line first, right? But as that crude oil makes its way towards the engine, lots of bad things are going to happen. You might make it a block or so down the street if you're lucky, and then you're going to end up with an expensive repair bill to be able to ever use your car again. It's kind of similar to the way our body works. Imagine this scenario. Let's say that I'm going out for a really amazing Thai curry dinner, and I decide, you know what? I want to send it directly to my every cell in my body as quick as I can so I can get a great boost of energy. So I take it home, because I get a takeout version, right? And I put it in the blender and I blend it all up so it's really, really fine and basically like liquid. And then I stick an IV in my arm and it goes flowing through my entire bloodstream. So what are the cells going to say as my Thai curry comes by each of the cells? They're going to take a look at that and go, now, what is that again? Is that a piece of green bean? And tofu. Well, tofu ain't fuel. Carrots. Nice. Probably tastes good if you like them. But no, not fuel. In fact, nothing you've put in there is fuel. Not the carrots, not the tofu, not the bamboo shoots, not the coconut milk. Nothing in there is going to be recognized by your cells as fuel. Probably what's going to happen is it's probably going to clog up your system, kind of like the crude oil did with your car. So what exactly is the fuel that every single cell in your body runs on? Well, it's called adenosine triphosphate, also known as ATP. Now here's the really cool part about it. You know how when you take crude oil, you need to take it to a refinery? It looks something like this. And that crude oil gets processed and manipulated and extracted and all the different things that has to happen to it. And then it becomes gasoline. And then you can stick it in your car and it runs just fine. Turns out, God actually designed a refinery system right into your body. You've probably heard about it. It's called your digestion system, right? You stick the raw materials that you need for your fuel in your mouth. It's also called food, right? You taste it, you chew it, it's really good. And that starts the breaking down process in your mouth. It goes down into your esophagus and your stomach and then your large intestines. And through that process, each step of the way, it starts refining or taking apart all this food and turns it into glucose. That glucose then is actually refined further or processed further in your cells to create the actual fuel for your body, for every single cell in your body, adenosine triphosphate. I'm assuming pretty much everybody knows about it, but here's the thing. If that doesn't actually amaze you, why don't we take a look at what it would require for a car to operate the same way that your body operates right now? Yep, that's what it would be. Your car would have to run around with a full-blown refinery strapped to the top of your vehicle so they could dump crude oil into the refinery. The refinery could extract, process, and refine all that crude oil into gasoline and then dump it right into your fuel tank so that you could actually run. But here's the really cool part. Even though God designed a refinery built right into our body, we don't have to run around carrying some big giant backpack just so we can have energy or fuel for every single cell of our body. In fact, we get to have a rather nicely designed body that has it all tucked inside exactly where God designed it to be. So now that you know the difference between food, raw materials, and actual energy, fuel for your body, ATP, then back to our question. What is the difference between chronic fatigue and being really, really tired? Now, I believe this is probably the simplest definition you'll find out there, and it looks like this. Being really, really tired is simply having an empty fuel tank. You just don't have enough ATP in your body, and your body is run down, doesn't have the gasoline to make it move. On the other hand, if the refinery itself has been damaged or isn't working or something's making it operate improperly, you may not have the ability to create the fuel to make your body run. In other words, your refinery is broken or damaged. Now, of course, this isn't a full scientific explanation of the process, but I think the simplicity clarifies one thing very, very well, and it answers a very frustrating question when it comes to chronic fatigue. Why is it that I can rest and rest and rest and rest and rest and rest and rest some more, and I don't feel any more energy? I don't get any better. Well, it's simply because your body's losing or has a limited capacity to create the actual fuel that your body's running on. It has a reduced ability to create ATP. So all the rest in the world isn't going to solve the problem. On the other hand, if you're just really, really tired, eventually with enough rest, if you're really, really, really tired, it may take a day or two. You lay down, take a really good nap, maybe a long night's sleep, and your body will do what it does best. That refinery will kick in gear, and it'll make more ATP, and eventually the gas tank will be full. You'll be able to get up and get moving in life. So of course, the next logical question then is, well, what's blocking my refinery from working properly? What's stopping my body from being able to refine and extract ATP from the raw materials that I put into it? Food. Well, it turns out the answer to that question, well, there's lots of answers to that question. And most of the time, each of those answers is actually only part of the solution. Here's a short, non-exhaustive list of common areas where people find at least partial solutions to their chronic fatigue. Environmental toxins could be something like toxic mold, chemicals, or poisons. Viral infections such as Ross River virus, can't talk straight, Coxiella burnetii, and Epstein-Barr. Bacterial infections such as Lyme disease can also create problems with our ability to produce the energy that we need. Digestive problems such as leaky gut or irritable bowel syndrome can also be an area that, once solved, can improve our ability to create energy. And finally, hormonal imbalances and hormonal problems, can also have a major effect on it. And lastly, I know I said finally, right? But lastly, it's actually our psychology, our personality, our emotion patterns, the way we think and feel on a regular basis can have a large impact on our ability to produce energy in the long run. So, of course, the bad news is kind of obvious. This is a pretty complex situation. There could be a bunch of different factors that are contributing to it that end up creating many of the same symptoms, but with different potential causes. In fact, it's so complex that if you go to a standard trained medical doctor, oftentimes they will tell you that chronic fatigue is unfixable. It's incurable. However, the good news is there are many people who have been able to overcome their chronic fatigue. Trying to detail out every single possible option that could be blocking your refinery from working is not something that I can cover in this video. And quite frankly, I don't know enough about to be able to even begin to cover all that. But there's one common denominator that often occurs, not in every case, but in most of the cases. One of the contributors to chronic fatigue is the way our thinking and our emotions are playing out in our day-to-day life. Basically, our psychology. Now you might be thinking, what on earth does my psychology have anything to do with my energy? Fair enough. There are two main ways in which your mental habits or your psychology affects your energy level. One is the immediate felt sense of it, and the other is the overall drain or lack of drain on your body's resources over time. So to experience the first one, I'd like you to do a little experiment with me just so you can kind of experience a small taste of the power of that mind-body connection. Now I promise you, I'm not trying to make you miserable or depressed or anything like that. But in this experiment, what I want you to do is, first of all, take a little reading, a mental assessment of your current energy level right now. Rate it from 0. Oh my gosh, I just don't have any energy at all. Like getting off the bed seems like it would be running a 100-mile marathon. Or you got 10. You're just totally stoked with energy. Not sure if you need any rest. You probably feel like you could go for 3 days straight and no problems whatsoever. So rate it between 0 and 10. You got that number? You got it in your mind? By the way, you don't have to be perfect with this. It's not like an exact science. And if you're like, well, I think it might be a 5, but it could be a 6, just pick one. Close enough is good enough. It really is. So once you have that number in mind, now here's the next step. What I want you to do is think back in your mind to the worst time in your life. Now, hopefully it was only a day or two or maybe even a few hours. Hopefully it wasn't longer than a week or maybe a month or maybe a few years. But whatever it was, think about the very worst time in your life, the time that you felt most stuck and most helpless. Now imagine yourself back in that time. Let yourself feel what it was like to be there. Whatever feelings you had in your heart, your body, your mind, the thoughts you had going on. Allow your whole being to sort of live back there so you're re-experiencing that. And while you're doing that, now imagine that that is going to be your life tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next week, the following week, and the rest of your life. There's no way out. This is going to be the rest of your life until you're gone. Now, while you're feeling that, allowing your brain and body to absorb the sense of that living in that really terrible, awful time in your life, I want you to re-rate your energy level, 0 to 10. Now, for most people, you're going to notice a significant shift. Maybe not huge, but you're going to notice a significant shift in your felt sense of energy between just being normal, like watching this video, sort of neutral type of emotions and feelings, to thinking about the times or going through, experiencing those really difficult times in your life. Just that felt difference in that felt sense of energy is one way in which your psychology or your mental patterns can actually really affect your energy level. However, there's a much more significant effect that the long-term patterns and thinking and feeling you have can have on your body. The second way are ongoing patterns of thinking and feeling, or psychology, can make a big impact on our ability to produce energy, ATP, for our body, is the long-term ongoing strain that certain patterns can put on our brain and our body. Here is a list of common examples. If you feel high pressure to achieve, especially feel like you must be better than everyone else, that often creates a major drain on your body's resources and can deplete your ability to create ATP. A high sense of responsibility for others. If you have this sense of like it's your job to make them happy, it's your job to make sure that they're okay, especially if they're not your child, this may be a problem for you. On the other hand, do you have a deep need to do things or make things perfect? If he's always striving to be perfect and it's never good enough if it's not perfect, then that's an extremely high standard to try and achieve, and it creates a long-term draining effect on your brain and your body. Also, needing to be in constant control can be a big drain as well. This is often the result of people who have this deep-seated felt sense that if I'm not in control, I'm not safe. I have to be in control in order to stay safe. Now, there's usually some historical events and experiences that have led people to feel that way. By the way, those can be resolved with the right type of approach to it. So don't feel like if you have those experiences that you're stuck there forever. Does not have to be the case. Also, having intense anger or chronic anger where you're just angry a lot all the time. I know some people, it's like they're just chronically irritated with the incompetence and stupidity of people around them. We're always finding, why do these people have to be so stupid? Why do they have to do it this way? It leaves you in a chronic state of just being agitated, angry, and upset. It could be you're just super angry about something and it's constantly on your mind. That can also do it. Resentment, not exactly the same thing as anger, but it's closely related. Just resenting the fact that you're stuck in a situation where you don't want to be. You feel like it's someone else's fault. You feel it's unfair, and you're just holding on to it and just sort of nursing that grudge. That can also create a draining effect on your body. Finally, intense guilt. Feeling like something that you did or said or some terrible thing that happened was totally your fault, and it just feels so big and such a terrible thing, like forgiveness isn't possible. I don't have time in this video to go into it, but as a Christian, I can tell you not only is forgiveness possible, it's freely available. And while in fact, some of it may be your fault, the most likely scenario is that you were being a normal human being and you made a mistake. And it's not all your fault. So learning to deal with guilt and find a way to resolve it. Not necessarily just let yourself go, oh, I did that, but it doesn't really matter. That's not the solution. We need to take responsibility for learning from the mistakes we've made in the past. But once we've done that, is there any other reasonable thing that any human being can do when they're trying to recover from a mistake or do better in the future? Once you've learned from it, you've taken responsibility for it, and you're doing better in the future, then there's not a real reason why you have to stay stuck in guilt. All of those patterns are patterns that can contribute, sometimes significantly, occasionally even greatly, to limiting our body's ability to produce the energy we need so that we can live well. Now you might be asking yourself, well, do I have some of those patterns working in my mind? Well, I'm glad you asked. As a matter of fact, I have a tool on my website that's available to you completely free. I do ask that you give me an email address just so that we can keep in touch. But it's just go to christianfatiguesolutions.com. I'll have it shown somewhere here in the video or below. christianfatiguesolutions.com, and take the personality quiz I have there. It's completely free, and of course it's not an exhaustive assessment of everything that could possibly from an emotional, psychological perspective, be contributing to your fatigue, but it gives you a great place to start. And in addition to that, there is a way for you to get some guides to help you reduce the effects of some of those patterns. And again, it's completely free. So head on over to christianfatiguesolutions.com and take that quiz. But before you go, if you found this explanation helpful, this idea that the fundamental difference between chronic fatigue and just being really drained and tired is simply that chronic fatigue is a damage or blockage in the refinery system process. It limits your ability to actually make the fuel that your body runs on. And that's why rest just doesn't work to fix it. And of course, being really, really tired is just running out of ATP, emptying your tank, and in fact, rest, the normal methods that people use, generally works pretty well. If that concept, if that definition has been helpful to you, and perhaps maybe it's helpful in explaining those differences to other people, please hit this like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with other people. My goal is to help as many people as possible find their solution to their fatigue. Now, before you leave, I really would like it if you can leave me some comments below on how effective you feel this definition is for you. Now, I realize it's more of a metaphor than scientific actual data as to how it works, but I think that it's really useful, or at least I imagine it to be really useful in practical ways in how to explain it to myself and to other people as to how chronic fatigue affects us and why just standard rest doesn't solve the problem. So anyway, whatever your reaction is to this video, does this definition work for you? Is it helpful? Is it not? Do you have a better definition? Do you have a better explanation that works better? Please share all those comments below, and I look forward to reading them and responding. Have a blessed day.